Hey everyone, today I want to talk about some strategies that can really help improve your memory and your ability to learn something new, whether it's new information or a new skill. And basically, I really just want to give you guys ideas for how to take advantage of your brain and help you learn some psychological tricks that can really give you a little bit of an edge in your ability to perform. Quick aside, I do have a PhD in clinical psychology, so this isn't coming from absolutely nowhere. I used to give therapy. I also did a lot of research. I also did cognitive assessments, so I'm deriving a lot of these principles from what I've learned and from scientific research. But I will also admit that some of this is just coming from my own personal experience and perspective. So hi, if we haven't met before, I'm Aylin, and this is my channel Slice of Light, where I talk about simple living, building an empowering mindset, and a little bit about photography and videography. If any of those topics sound interesting to you, do click the subscribe button. I don't have many subscribers, so that would be a huge help. And if you end up liking the video, do hit the thumbs up button. So the first strategy I want to discuss is to actually study the information you're trying to learn or practice the skill you're trying to develop in the evening before you go to bed. There's a lot of evidence to suggest there's a link between sleep and memory and learning, and the first study to recognize this link between sleep and memory was completed by a woman, love that, Rosa Hine in 1914. So in her study, she had participants learn material either in the evening before they went to sleep or earlier in the day, and she found that those that learned it right before they went to bed actually remembered the information better. This study was a long time ago and it only included 6 participants, but a lot of research has come after to support this idea that sleep is good for memory and for learning something new. Psychological research in the past has focused a little bit more on the concept of forgetting, what causes forgetting, things like decay and degrading of memory over time, as well as distractions or interruptions to that memory that leads to forgetting. But research more recently has looked a little bit more closely at what actually benefits memory? What allows you to learn things more efficiently or better? And they've really found that likely there are processes that occur during sleep that really help the formation of new longer-term memories. So just to give you a quick little bit of background, don't mean to get too into the weeds here, there are 3 main processes in memory. The first is encoding, which is basically that just first initial absorption of information. Second is consolidation, where the memory is stabilized. It's integrated into your knowledge network that already exists. It's put in context of other memories and other knowledge, and it's just put a little bit more deeply into your longer term memory. Finally, the third process is retrieval, and that's basically what it sounds like when you want to recall a memory, it comes to mind, and you're retrieving it from your memory stores. Interestingly, when you retrieve a memory, it actually does become more delicate and it can be subject to change once it's brought again into conscious awareness. So basically, what happens during sleep is a lot of that second piece, that consolidation of memory, where what you learn and new information is being integrated into the knowledge networks that you already have. All of the experiences of the past you've had and all the information you've ever learned gives sort of a scaffold or a structure to the new information coming in, and that allows for the memory to really take hold and stick with you in the longer term. So to extend this sleep argument, not only should you practice the new skill and study the new information right before bed, but simply improving your sleep in general is probably a good idea if you're trying to learn a new skill or learn new information. And I could do a whole video just on improving sleep, but if you're curious about ways to improve your own sleep, I'd encourage you to just look up sleep hygiene strategies. That's going to be a good way to start to improve your own sleep. One other quick trick I'd recommend for memory, especially in the context maybe of test taking, is to take advantage of contextual cues by, say, studying in the classroom where you're going to take the test. Or even just visiting the test site before the day of can make you more comfortable on the day of, reduce anxiety, and take away sort of that extra stress or load on your working memory of being in a new environment so that you can really just focus on the content of the test. Another factor to keep in mind when you're trying to learn something is to keep a growth mindset. And when you have a growth mindset, you basically hold to the belief that intelligence is malleable and that it's about how hard you work and your resilience that allows you to succeed. And you can really train your own brain to have more of a growth mindset. Instead of fearing failure, anticipate it, expect it, and when failure does happen, Accept it and move forward. See what you can learn from it, and don't blame yourself for your failure, because truly, failure is a huge part of learning something new. And if we fear failure, it might paralyze us. But by being open to it and accepting of it and realizing that most people do fail a few times when they're trying some new skill, we might be able to feel better about ourselves. This next one is perhaps the most obvious one that I'm guessing you've heard before, but that is to practice, practice, practice. With repetition, things become more familiar, and with familiarity, things become less intimidating and more doable. Think back to a time in school maybe when you first heard about a concept or a scientific or mathematical principle that kind of confused you. The first time you heard it, it felt really intimidating, you didn't know any of the terms, you were really overwhelmed, but then maybe the second or the third time you encountered it, you at least could remember something about it, or at least the terms were a little bit more familiar, and it became a little bit easier. I remember when I was first learning long division even, that was super intimidating. But then as I learned it the second or the third time, it became almost fun. The point is, the more you do something, the easier it's going to get. I mean, I remember the first time I learned to drive a car. I was in this parking lot with my parents, and I was totally paralyzed. I wouldn't go more than like 3 miles an hour. I felt totally out of control in the driver's seat, and I was really overwhelmed. But obviously, as I practiced more and more, I became much more comfortable in the driver's seat. And now, driving is really second nature to me, and I don't really think about it much. I mean, think back to a time when you maybe learned a new skill and experienced that same process of being intimidated or overwhelmed at first, not really understanding it, and then gradually gaining confidence and more knowledge. If you're patient through that initial part, if you have that growth mindset and are willing to try things over and over again, they will become easier and you'll actually gain a new skill. The next tip I want to give, which maybe you won't have control over, but if you want to learn a new skill or a new area of information, I highly recommend that you find something that really interests you. Or if you're having to learn something that doesn't interest you, find a way to connect it to something that does excite you or does motivate you. Self-determination theory talks about the principles of intrinsic motivation, which is basically that sense of actually just genuinely enjoying something because it interests you, as opposed to external rewards of some kind. Intrinsic motivation can lead to higher quality learning, and it can also lead to a sense of autonomy and accomplishment, and just a general sense of competence. So if you find something you love, you're more likely to be better at learning it than if you're forced into learning something that you aren't really interested in. But again, if you can find a way to get excited about something, or if you can find a way to relate it to a topic you're interested in, it's going to be a lot easier for you to learn. A final tip is to really focus on your own general mental health and emotional well-being. If you can improve your mental health, you're more likely to set your brain up to learn more. Think about it. If you're dealing with heaps of anxiety or depression or just general stress or a lack of fulfillment, it's going to be harder for you to focus on the task at hand and learn it in the most efficient way possible. I really want to emphasize this though, this isn't just some hokey excuse to try to get you to focus on your mental health. Like truly, I've seen it myself. I used to deliver IQ tests and cognitive test batteries, and what I would often see in people who had high levels of anxiety or depression is that they would have lower scores like randomly across different areas of their IQ or their cognitive abilities. So instead of seeing, like you might see in the context of a learning disability, some kind of like area where things are a little bit lower, there would just be lower scores for that person across the board randomly in different categories in a way that didn't really make sense. And so what that really showed me was that people who are dealing with anxiety in general, when they're trying to focus on a task, and even when they're trying to perform really well, it might actually impact their performance. And if it's impacting their cognitions, it's probably impacting their memory and their ability to learn new information. So if you're somebody that is dealing with a lot of stress, and believe me, I think a lot of us are, especially in this time of COVID, when we're forced to stay home way more than we normally would. I think it's worth thinking about what are real ways that I can try to improve my mental health, reduce my anxiety, enjoy myself a little bit more. I just think really focusing on strategies to improve your own mental health are going to help you learn new information faster and better. I also want to add, if you feel like your stress or your anxiety or your depression or whatever you're dealing with is getting overwhelming, don't hesitate to seek some professional mental health help. It can really change your life. And I think that's the other point I want to make, is that it's not just like it'll make you happier, it might actually make you more productive, more confident. It might also help your ability to learn new information and to acquire new memories. So it's just really important that you focus on your mental health. And that does bring me back to sleep, that the amount of sleep you get is correlated with so many areas of mental well-being. And so if you're not getting enough sleep, it might also be negatively impacting your mental health. So definitely try to get a good number of hours of sleep every night and good quality sleep. For me personally, I've found that it's so important for me to actually take breaks, and breaks that I've planned so that I don't feel guilty the entire time that I'm relaxing. I think I really struggle personally with heightened anxiety, like I should be working on this, and so the whole time I'm supposed to be relaxing, I'm actually just thinking about my to-do list. And I really think, especially since I do work from home, and I think a lot of us do these days, it's so important to create structure so that it's not like I'm letting my work go deep into the evening on a regular basis, and to actually find time in the evening to relax and recharge, spend time with my husband, hang out, watch a movie, whatever it is, go for a walk, and find time to actually recharge. Because when I don't do that, what ends up happening is I have more stress, and then the next day I just can't focus as well, and I'm not as productive, and I'm not gaining new information and learning the way I'd like. I think really figuring out ways to improve your mental health, to take healthy breaks, will actually help you be more productive and be able to learn new information more quickly. So hopefully some of these ideas were of some help to you, but overall, I just want you to keep in mind that we all are imperfect. Every time we learn something new, it's hard. That's the nature of learning. And if you can just accept that and almost embrace it, then you're going to be far more successful in the long run than if you just avoid it altogether. So you've got this. I hope I've got this. We're in it together. Go learn something new. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.